Hello and blessings, beautiful souls. Sarava and Ashe. So I have come back to my roots, as I have previously discussed with you in a very open and raw heart to heart. And I thought that I would revisit the subject and let you know how I'm going and how I am going to go about this process. Now, one of the very first ideas or suggestions that was handed to me was to get into some traditional cooking. Now, I'm a terrible cook. Full honesty, I'm a terrible cook. Not only do I not have the patience for cooking, but cooking stresses me out more than anything else in this world. And I'm not even joking. I have even had the experience of breaking out in hives, being in a kitchen while a chef friend of mine was showing me a few things. I just couldn't handle it. It's stressful. I don't like it. I'm not good at it and I don't like it. And so what I've been doing is I've actually been forcing myself, or coercing myself more to the point, to get back into the kitchen and just to make anything. Not just Brazilian food, but anything. Because when I lived over there, when I was in that, in that youthful home space and just, loving my family and in that mindfulness space of life over there, of practice over there, I noticed that the adults in my life, my family of origin, the adults, the people that had the most amount of influence over me were always in the kitchen. They were either in the kitchen plucking chickens for ritual feast. They were in the chickens making this thing called cocada, which is, oh my God, amazing. It's so not good for you, but it is amazing. And it's something that they would make from scratch. The kids would run up the coconut tree. They would bring down some coconuts. The women would crack the coconuts. They would scrape all the coconuts out. They would make this amazing treat with condensed milk and sugar and coconut and all the things that are not at all good for you, but that just taste like heaven in your mouth, right? And they were constantly in the kitchen cooking, making these beautiful docinhos, which are these little brigadeiros, bolinha de queijo, coisas assim. Little things like that, I meant to say. And also these little savories called salgadinhos and coxinha de galinha and these kinds of things, right? And it wasn't necessarily just about the type of food they were cooking. It was that they created this kind of ambiance in the kitchen that was happy. It was joyful. It was conversational. There was never just one person in the kitchen, ever. There was, in fact, rarely ever just two people in the kitchen. I remember my mother being in the kitchen, my grandmother being in the kitchen, my auntie Hivanda, my auntie Izalia, and a few other people all contributing to this food, and they would drink a little beer and they would laugh and they would each be doing a task. And the idea of cooking over there was so much more appealing to the idea of cooking here, where it's just me in the kitchen without any skills whatsoever. Just effing miserable, right? So this week, I kind of started to get back into it. I started to get back into the cooking. And as I started to get back into the cooking, and I actually made savory muffins, zucchini and carrot savory muffins on wholemeal flour that turned out okay. I have got to tell you how much meditation I did prior to that. I sat down and watched an entire ASMR video and then went and made this savory muffin, and it wasn't so bad. I managed to keep myself in this very calm state of mind. But as I was making this muffin, this dish, and then I later on made this nice bake, this vegetarian bake for dinner, I felt extraordinarily accomplished. My husband was like, wow, you're going all out. Like, you never make this type of food. And I was like, I know, just don't jinx me, right? Just don't jinx me. And so I went on and I made this amazing dinner. It was enjoyed by the whole family. as chock full of vegetables as it was, my children still ate it. They savoured it, they enjoyed it, which made me happy. They took those veggie muffins to school and to daycare, and they ate them instead of having like sandwiches, and they really enjoyed them, and that just made me feel like I could make more and I wanted to make more, right? Anyway, so all of a sudden I've started to connect a little bit more with that cook archetype in my life, and I'm trying to bring my children into it as well because they create that sense of festivity. We put on a little music, we do a little baking. My daughter actually has the touch in the kitchen, and she recently made these cookies, these beautifully decorated cookies that won second prize in the local show. So she was stoked. She definitely has the touch, and she has the patience and the want to do it. But as I am doing all this cooking, and I swear this is not just a video to talk about cooking, but as I am doing this, I realized this, I don't even know how it came to be, if I'm being entirely truthful. It was just this concept of vanity. This concept of how I saw myself as a woman being in the kitchen. I don't like the stereotype. That's just something that is between me and the kitchen. I don't quite enjoy the stereotype. I've never been one to really hold fast to traditional stereotypes in that way, and that's just something about my personality that, you know, is the way that it is. And so I don't like the fact that I'm expected to be in the kitchen, and around here there's a lot of traditional thinkers, older generations and older men, and they all cook because some of them are single, and then they ask me what I cook and I'm like, I don't cook. And there is this like, how do you not cook? And I'm like, because I don't cook. If I was a man, they wouldn't ask me, you know, why don't you cook? And I felt it was a little bit sexist. And when I identified that about myself, I thought to myself, I don't think that anyone's judging me for not being in the kitchen. I think that I'm the only person that's judging myself, and I might be bringing this kind of baggage into this space unnecessarily. And as I'm sitting and marinating and I'm just walking you through my train of thought, I started to think of the woman. I started to think of the Brazilian woman, the Umbanda woman, the mystic, the bruxa, the woman of my family, the women of my family, I should say, and the women that influenced my family. And I've got to say that I use the term women because there were more women in my life growing up than there ever were men. The men that were in my life as I was growing up, the large majority were gay. And so I had this consistent feminine energy around. And there was this ever-present vanity. And vanity in a good way. Vanity, as I was growing up, the word for vanity is vaidosa, and I was always told that I was so beautifully vaidosa, as in I had beautiful vanity to me because I cared about my appearance. I cared about how I presented myself. I, you know, always did my hair. I always put on a little bit of gloss. I always presented myself in such a way, and it was a point of pride in my family that I was so vaidosa. Whereas here, in more westernized country, the word vanity, unless it's attached to healthy vanity, for instance, the word vanity itself is considered, well, not necessarily the best type of mind frame, the best type of habit or state of being, which it is, isn't it? You are either vain or you are not. And so a state of being. And I started to think about that entire concept, the entire concept of what it meant to be woman, what it was like to be a woman, a mystical, witchy woman in Brazil. And I've got to say that when I look back at that time, there was an enormous amount of positive, healthy vanity present. My grandmother always dressed herself immaculately. She had short blonde hair, red lips, nails were always done, little bit of makeup, well dressed, smelt amazing, right? Always. My mother is the same. very well dressed and always looking immaculate, really caring for their belongings. Then take that into a witch space or occult space. And my grandmother used to make these incredible ritual outfits. Her dress for Emanja was, it was a thing of beauty. Think Frozen, but amazing, more amazing. The individual who made that dress was my big sister's kind of witch godfather. I don't really know how else to put it. And he used to sew, he used to travel and sew for the Italian theatre company. I can't tell you which one. So he had mad skills, and he would make this amazing clothing, and he used to make these beautiful clothing, ritual clothing for my grandmother. And I would see how she brought that idea of vanity, that level of vanity, into her sacred space. She brought it into her home in the way that she presented her home. She brought it outside in the way that she presented herself to the world around her. And I noticed that the other women that surrounded me at that time all did the exact same thing. For them to appear the best always was extremely, extremely important, and it was an extension of who they were. They had a tremendous amount of pride in themselves, and some of these people didn't even have a lot of money, but they always looked as clean and tidy and as beautiful as they could manage. And I had completely forgotten about this. These days, I kind of schlep around in like my house clothes, and I've been caught out a couple of times where people have been delivering things to the property and I'm in my jammies, and I kind of, in that moment, I feel like horrendously embarrassed that I've just been caught in my dag rags, as we like to call them. And I'm like, why do I keep doing this? Why don't I just dress up? Then my beautiful husband said to me, if you were going to work, if you were leaving the house and going to work for somebody else, what would you do? And I'm like, I would get ready. I would get ready for work. I'd get ready. He goes, well, why don't you just get ready for work at home? And I was like, because it seems like a redundant thing to do because I'm at home. So as it turns out, this sense of homeliness that I have surrounded myself with, as much as I do work from home, mind you, right? So I work from home, so it's easy to sort of, you know, coast by in the most comfortable clothing because you don't feel necessarily like you need to dress up. But for the last 2 weeks, I have done my hair, I've done my makeup. I have had people drop in and felt amazing. I've been so well presented and received packages, or I've been picked up to go out to lunch really quickly, like in the moment, and I just jump in the car and I'm fully dressed and I've got a full face of makeup on, which is not to say that you need makeup to feel beautiful. It's just how I like to present myself. That's what I like. And I had completely forgotten about how amazing it was to present yourself in such a way, and what a positive impact it had. The way that I actually carry myself out when I'm in public, I've got my shoulders out, I look and feel amazing. I've got that Brazilian woman thing going on where I'm walking around with this, you know, uber sense of confidence because I've taken the time to cultivate that confidence in a way that is appealing to me. This might seem like it's all a bit like wishy-washy, this conversation, but I assure you that that level of a cultivated confidence, I then walk into my sacred space and I feel like I own the place, like more than I ever have before. I'm like, this is not just my sacred space. I'm like, I feel 100% fucking boss in my space. I walk in and I'm like, we are going to do, like, the energy is different. The energy exchange in that moment is different. The power and the energy that I cultivate feels very innocent to me. And I've got my innocent statue on my altar and I'm like, epa hey innocent, and it comes from this deep, deep place and I'm so immersed in it. It is amazing. And all of this came from cooking, from makeup, from remembering the women, from remembering that ancestry that had such a positive effect on me, that family of origin. I was so heavily influenced by so many beautiful women, and many of them have passed. Some are still alive. My beautiful auntie Izelia, she is still alive, and the last time I went to Brazil, I went and saw her, and she considers me to be as much of a granddaughter to her as, you know, any of her other grandchildren, because she was my grandmother's absolute best friend. They were partners in crime for 50, 60 years, right? So she was always in my life. And I remember, and even when I went over there, and even while she was in her 70s, 80s, I think, 80-somethings, she was looking on point, well-dressed, makeup on, house was beautiful. Like, she was still upholding that level of healthy vanity, that Brazilian woman essence, I think it is. And it was just so impressive to me. And I schlepped in, and I was all like, I'd put a little bit of effort in, but I wasn't looking anywhere near as banging as she was. And I didn't even see it in the moment, but she like hugged me and accepts me as the way that I am. My mother, on the other hand, is consistently critical. Is consistently critical, yes. She's like, do your hair, fix your clothes. Would a little makeup hurt? Like, really? Like, don't wear that color. Fix your shoes. Like, she's very critical, and I understand why she is, because it's just what she's accustomed to. Like, growing up, my sisters and I, we went to deportment and grooming classes, because learning to conduct yourself in certain situations that heavily related to my mother's work as an attorney, she's a criminal attorney, was very, very important. So I needed to learn my good table manners and how to carry myself in a room and how to carry conversations as a child with adults. And it was grueling. Like, deportment and grooming was just freaking grueling. And it's not that I would never put my children through deportment and grooming, mind you. But I still have that skill. I still remember deportment and grooming. I still remember what to do and so at the end of the day, those lessons, those grueling life lessons that were thrown at me as a child, still serve me to this day. I'm not going to do this to my children, mind you. I think there are better ways of teaching those types of skills to your children, and the bar these days is quite a bit lower. Children are now allowed to do quite a bit more within adult space, I have noticed here in Australia, so we will see how we go with that. But in terms of getting right there, back to my roots, I've been having a really nourishing and healing and loving time going back there and connecting with the simplest of things. And it's bringing back these soul fragments, these pieces of my soul that split away. Perhaps when I jumped on the plane to cross the giant ocean to get to Australia when I was just 16 years of age, I lost pieces of myself. And it only just came to mind really because I have been doing a lot of drum work, honouring the ancestors with drum, and I've been doing a lot of journeying. And I remember one of the journeys that I did when I was in Cairns with a beautiful shamaness named Misha Hu. I remember that when I did that journey that I experienced a connection with salmon, and I remember this moment of crossing the ocean, that plane ride when I was just 15 years old. I was by myself on a plane, and I remember the feeling. It just sort of threw me back into body, into this feeling, and I felt lost and unanchored. I was excited, I was scared, and there was trauma happening in that very moment that I wasn't aware of. And when I landed, my luggage didn't arrive with me, and I got a little bit lost at the airport. My father and my grandparents, who are both deceased now, my Australian grandparents, they were waiting for me in Brisbane airport, and I arrived at midnight feeling so unlike myself, so discombobulated, and just going, wow, like, look at where I am. Like, that transition had such a deep impact on me. And in all of these years, I haven't actually given that 15-year-old girl that sense of validation. And when you look back on it, 15 years of age is an impressionable time. And it was me that made the decision to come over. It was me that made the decision to leave my entire culture, all of my sisters, my mother, my grandmother, these people that meant so much to me. And I made that decision for very, very good reasons. And it was in search of a life that was free of violence. And it wasn't household violence that I experienced. It was violence in Brazil. It's a very chaotic, very violent environment where you have to be like on edge all of the time, and I didn't want to live my life like that. So it was a really difficult decision to make. And yet when I arrived here, pieces of my soul did fragment, they did splinter, and they did away. And so this whole concept of getting back to my roots and calling forth my ancestry and calling the memories of these places, the good memories, the ones that I remember, and not so much of the bad ones, because I don't need that in my sphere of consciousness right now, but calling back all those good times, reminding myself, inspiring myself, remembering, re-remembering, recalling, anchoring down, grounding. Oh gosh, it's an enormous time in my life right now. Absolutely enormous. And I'm so grateful to be aware and to be doing it. And I know that there are many other practitioners of the craft that are also migrants and that are out of place or feeling out of place or feeling disconnected. And I just wanted to say that there are very, very gentle and easy and beautiful ways of calling those fragments of home back to you and remembering those amazing and positive times, the ones that impacted who you were, the ones that put a smile on your face, the ones that nurtured you, the ones that comforted you. There is a way of calling that back, and it's just taking the time to connect with activities that directly relate to those experiences. So for me, connecting with food put me in a kitchen to remind me of the women, to then remind me of vanity, to then remind me of my loss of vanity, and just how important not the women were, the vanity was, the food was, the lifestyle, the culture, the way. And it's little things that can get you there, and it's little things that can take you far. And so I've had amazing epiphanies, and this whole recalling of the self has led me to the understanding that I have had a few little soul fragmentation issues that I wasn't even aware of. And knowing that, because I have done that work, that's hard work. I did that kind of shadowy type of work. And now that I know what is missing, now that I know one of the little facets that is that needs repairing, I can actively get in there and do that work, that really good healing work. And so it's such worthwhile work to do. And for those who are missing those fragments of themselves, who are feeling disconnected, who are feeling separate to their homeland, and who want to bring that sense of home to where they are in this moment in time, then just know that the way there is very simple, and it doesn't require any bells and whistles. You just need to prepare the spirit for a little, a little nostalgic journey through the garden of your life. And there you go, beautiful souls. Just another very long update about how it is that I'm going and connecting with my culture again, and finding my way back to my practice and immersing myself in that traditional practice, that traditional hereditary witch practice. I hope that you enjoy these story times, because that's kind of what they end up being, these giant story times. And so it feels good just talking about it, and it allows me to process it out of my head, like out loud. that's very beneficial. And so thanks for holding space for me, and I would love to hear, you know, where you are on your practice, if you are feeling that call to home, how it is that you are going about cultivating that reconnection, how your re-remembering process is going, and just all of the things. Let's have a nice conversation about it. But in the meantime, no matter where you are, no matter what you are doing, I sincerely hope that you are surrounded by magic, and I'm wishing you so much love, luck, peace, and joy. Thanks for sitting with me, and thanks for spending this time with me. It is an absolute honor to spend this time with you, and so much love, many blessings. Mwah. Bye.